Hi everybody. We're going to talk about chapters 4 and 5, which deal with plot lines and production planning. And I think we're going to have some fun and also think about the logistics behind any sort of production you might come across and work on. First of all, thanks to all of you who submitted TV story pitches. Every single one of them was really intriguing and full of promise. So I encourage you to keep working on them for yourselves after the semester is over. Why not? This is how things get made. People have ideas, they become dedicated to them, they work really hard, they get made. So, I want you to think about our TV series project, and then I want you to post at least one short idea for a potential plot line for our class TV project. Your submitted plot line is going to be open to comments and feedback from the class and myself, of course. I want you to think about the plot line being limited to one episode. So it's self-contained and does not directly continue into the next episode, meaning no cliffhangers, right? Like who shot JR or something like that, where the very next scene has to finish what you started. I don't want that, right? I want it to be more self-contained. Of course, a plot line will have ramifications throughout an entire series, so I expect that, and you should think about that. But I don't want it to be like a part one. Right? And I do want it to include some major elements. And again, it doesn't have to be overly in-depth with dialogue and script and all that. Think of it as a sketch, a nicely developed sketch, but a sketch nonetheless. Again, look at the example I'll post, and you'll see what I'm talking about. First of all, who is mainly involved in this plot line? Plot lines rarely involve every character of a show. And oftentimes, a new character is used in the episode for plot purposes and is not a major recurring character and may never appear again, right? Oftentimes when you watch episodes of television shows, there'll be an A story and a B story. Two of the characters are in the A story. Two of the characters, three characters are in the B story. We're going to focus on one, right? So who's involved in this plot line you're submitting? What event kicks this off, right? And then how does it proceed? Every plot starts with something. Something makes the action start to happen. Events occur accordingly, cause and effect. And then how does the plot line end or resolve, right? So think of it as a classic structure, right? There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. You're going to go to the TV series plotline discussion board and get full details and engage in some lively discussion, I hope, about your ideas for our project. So what this means, of course, is that we have a production to work towards, the one you all voted on. That was step 1 in our production task list, which is chapters 1, 2, and 3 in your book. And this is generally titled Ideas, which includes coming up with ideas, discussing in your group how they might work, thinking about the style of the production. What do we want it to look like, right? What do we want it to consist of aesthetically? So then we want to move into the production planning, which is chapters 4 and 5, and that includes planning what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and then also planning who is going to do what on the project. We're going to delve into that a little in another discussion board and assignment. Okay, so as your book details and talks about, you should really think of a production plan like a map. You have a destination, a starting point, and places in the middle. And it's there to keep you on track and get you back on track when and or if you wander off the production path. And I probably should just say when you wander off the production path, because even the best people do. But a good production plan will keep you focused and act as a map. This solid planning is really essential to a good production. Without it, it's pretty impossible to have a great one. The first episode of any series is generally called the pilot. So a television pilot, also known as just a pilot or pilot episode, is a standalone episode of a television series that is used to sell the show to a television network or distribution platform. Now, for your plot lines, you can think about it as something later in the series. It doesn't have to be a quote-unquote pilot plot line. But I did want to just mention that for the vernacular of what a pilot is. Now, when you think about a solid production plan / map, let's think about it in terms of a timeline. A timeline is a simple and powerful way to estimate how long things are going to take. As a producer, you're responsible for the production, delivery, of a product, right? So our timeline is going to be theoretical because we don't actually get to meet in person and do this, but I want you to think about it seriously nonetheless. It's an important concept moving forward in practically anything you do, frankly. So our timeline so far, as you can see, is like we already talked about, coming up with ideas, discussing how the show might work, plot lines, etc., thinking about the style of the show, what's it going to look like, what's it going to sound like, how is it going to feel aesthetically. And then when you get more into the actual planning, you're going to plan what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, and who is going to do what on the project. Staffing it correctly, staffing it effectively, staffing it makes all the difference in the world in the end result, right? All the way from the cast down to the makeup person, to the camera people, everyone. When you think about timelines, there's more than one way to think about a timeline, right? If you look on page 22 of your book, they have a nice, interesting structure using an if-then idea. So you start at the end result and work backwards. That way you can figure out when you need to start. So looking at this example at the top, normally where you would see the beginning, they have the end listed. When do we have to deliver the project? Put in that date. And then working backwards, right? Maybe that's a way that might appeal to some of you in the way that you think. An if-then structure rather than a chronological, straightforward structure, right? Whichever one works best for you would be the best choice, right? But it's a good approach to consider using going forward, right? When you're planning things out. Production planning and allocating tasks is something we're going to look at this semester. Your TV project producer and many upcoming necessary tasks are going to be allocated and staffed. Here's a condensed list of what we need. We're all acting as the producer for this show. And as a producer, you really run the show, right? You set up the shots, the shoots, sorry. You organize all the cast and the technicians and the locations. You deal with money and permissions. You hire everybody. You fire people you need to fire. You look after the production plan and the timing. You make sure everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing and when and where they're supposed to be doing it. You hire people. You allocate. You delegate. And some of those things are the director. On the shoot itself, a director directs the camera and the actors and decides what shots or sound to use. The director is responsible for the storyboard if you use one. The director is sort of the vision guider, but make no mistake, he or she still works for the producer. There's the scriptwriter, the people who write the words that the actors are going to say, right? The camera work, operating the camera, getting the best shots, looking after lighting, taking care of the equipment, checking the rushes, labeling the tape, all that stuff, camera work. Sound recording, half of any film or television production is audio, super important. Looking after the sound equipment, make sure it's working properly, sounds good. You have editing. Once you have all this footage, someone has to put it all together and make a coherent story out of it. So cutting the film together, the TV show together. And then we have costume and makeup and props. These are all related, but they're three very different areas and positions. Costumes, self-explanatory. Makeup, self-explanatory. Props, everything that an actor would use in a shoot. They come from somewhere. Someone collects them. Someone gets them. Someone makes them, right? And they go a long way in the success or failure of a production. And of course, there's the actors, right? Casting actors. So what I want you to do, at least for now, is to complete your submission on the plot lines discussion board by the due date. Think of the due date as not the due date as much as your very last chance, right? If you wait until the very end, you just miss out on a lot. And we miss out on a lot from you. We don't have a chance to discuss it or ruminate or think about it or have a conversation because we have to move on. So please do your absolute best to contribute often and contribute early. And on that note, I hope to see you on the boards.